Hi, my name's Bill Schaeffer, and today's book review is Book of the Hopi by Frank Waters. This really is an amazing and scholarly book and contains so much material that it would be impossible to do it justice in a short book review. The book is fascinating, and in fact, I could really spend many more days studying it. But some of the highlights of the book to me: it's an academic book. It was produced with an academic grant. It's an anthropological text to record and describe the cultural narratives and religion myths of all the different Hopi Indian clans, and to describe the pictograms and some sense of their own history according to their cosmology. We're now at the end of the fourth world of the Hopis, and we're going to be entering into a cataclysmic event, and out of that will become the fifth world that all humanity will live in. The Hopi people themselves started in antiquity at the beginning of the fourth world. When the Hopi ancestors arrive in the fourth world, this present world, a figure named Masao divides them into clans and gives them all an assignment. And what they're supposed to do is migrate across the full extent of this North and South America in a form of kind of a cross or a swastika, where some go south, some go north, some go east, some go west, until all of them have traversed the entire continent across hundreds of years. So this will be something that the clans in their continual migration are seeking to accomplish. And then finally, the ones that don't get lost along the way or forget the assignment will arrive at their final settling place, which is the present Hopi lands in Four Corners. Now, the interesting thing is all these clans have their own pictograms, and these pictograms can be found throughout North and South America, and as ancient sites where different clans would meet up, settle for a few generations, and then continue their migrations till the present day. And at some point, now that they're settled, this figure Masao will come back and give them their next instructions that's leading on to the fifth world. Now, this history is very condensed and very generalized, and it's interesting to read in more detail. After this beginning, there's a number of the clan stories and myths, and these are also quite detailed. And there's a lot of reading of those, and I still need to read a few of those. Another thing I found very interesting about the book was the description of the Hopi worldview, the Hopi religion, and the Hopi religious practices. There's a lot of rites and practices and elements of the ceremonies that seem obscure, and even the people that are enacting them are not entirely sure what the purpose is. But these same different ceremonies at certain times have been repeated for hundreds of years. And they all together present kind of a complete tapestry of a symbolic representation of an understanding that's not explicitly described as in a text. In this way, it's similar to me to the practice of the Masons, where they have certain rituals where the ritual is itself the meaning. This is kind of foreign. This idea is kind of foreign to Protestantism and some of the more book-based beliefs. Now, central to all these stories and myths are characters called Kachinas. And Kachinas are kind of like earth spirits, and they're similar to kami in Shintoism, or the earth spirits of ancient Greek and Roman religion. Except that the Kachinas are related to the stars and planets in outer space. And I read from the book right here. The real Kachinas, as we know, are spirits from other planets and stars. But the high mountain to which messages are directed to them is San Francisco Mountain. So there's this really interesting kind of alien or UFO link or possible link to a lot of these stories, because the Kachinas come from the stars, they go back to the stars, they're going to show up again from the stars. And on the migration, the different clans are each following their own star. So they're even being guided by the star or messages from the stars during the migration over generations and generations and generations. Now, another interesting part of the book, after a lot of these different clan stories and myths, is their own historical narrative of their relatively recent history. And the Hopi, according to them, settled the territory first, and then Navajo raiders, a different culture, came and surrounded them. And then after that, then the Spanish and the Americans. And this is the story of how the conflicts they have, and they slowly lose the integrity of some of the rites, and particularly on the reservation system, how the clans have been divided against each other between the ones who want to preserve the traditional ways and the ones who want to assimilate into Western ways. And that's kind of just an interesting historical story of the events if you're not familiar with them. And the last part of the cultural myths and beliefs are prophecies about the future. And these are fairly well known. In fact, there's other documents of a Hopi delegation going to the UN, the United Nations, and presenting information to this effect. But here the Hopi prophecies are described, and I'll read to you. The end of all Hopi ceremonialism will come when a Kachina, it's like a Kachina dancer, removes his mask during a dance in the plaza before uninitiated children. For a while there will be no more ceremonies, no more faith. Then Oraibi will be rejuvenated with its faith and ceremonies, marking the start of a new cycle of Hopi life. Then, World War III will be started by those people who first received the light, i.e., the divine wisdom or intelligence, in other old countries. This would be India, China, Egypt, Palestine, Africa. The United States will be destroyed, land and people, by atomic bombs and radioactivity. Only the Hopis and their homeland will be preserved, as an oasis to which refugees will flee. Bomb shelters are a fallacy. The war will be a spiritual conflict with material matters. Material matters will be destroyed by spiritual beings who will remain to create one world and one nation under one power, that of the Creator. That time is not far off. It will come when the Saquasohuh, the blue star Kachina, dances in the plaza. He represents a blue star, far off and yet invisible, which will make its appearance soon. The time is also foretold by a song sung during the Wu Wu Chim ceremony. It was sung in 1914, just before World War I, and again in 1940, before World War II, describing disunity, corruption, and hatred contaminating Hopi rituals. The same song was sung in 1961. The emergence to the future fifth world has already begun. It is being made by the humble people of little nations, tribes, and racial minorities. You can read this in the earth itself. Plant forms from previous worlds are beginning to spring up as seeds. So you can see this is a very interesting book, very detailed, and a very interesting prophecy of the future. Therefore, if you're the least bit interested in Hopi worldview, the history of the Hopi people, and a little bit on the predictions from their traditions for the future, I highly recommend Book of the Hopi. A fascinating and scholarly book. I've just scratched the surface. You can read it and learn more for years. Thank you, and leave your comments below.